Hi, I'm Jeffery Kazukiewicz, violinist and instructor. Let's go ahead and discuss a little more detail about the role of the fingers in the bow hold and how they function during the bow stroke. First, I'd like to mention the functions of the individual fingers on the bow hold. We have the index and little finger, and these two I consider the control fingers and some of the most important fingers. The center finger and the thumb act as holders for the bow, and the ring finger is a little bit of an inert finger. It's not that active. So what I'd like to do is first mention that you have to make sure that you have a good placement of these fingers, especially your middle finger and thumb. Make sure that that middle finger is wrapped around, touching the silver, and you have your thumb touching the side of the hair, creating a little clamp there. And I go into greater depth and detail about this on another video, just focusing on finding your bow grip. Now, when we have the outer fingers in their positions, we have to have the little finger curved and the index finger wrapped over. Now, these act like a steering mechanism, and it allows you to control the bow up and in and out, and as circular types of gestures, all pivoting around the central point, which is your middle finger. So as we draw the bow through the bow stroke, the shape of our hand on the bow hold will actually change and be dynamic in nature. If we initially grab and wrap our fingers on to get our bow hold in an ideal position, you'll end up with something looking like this, but the hand won't stay in that shape as you draw the bow through the complete bow stroke. So the issue is that since our arm is connected in one point, it's natural for our arm to want to trace a circular path, an arc. And that's not going to help us or benefit us when we're trying to keep the bow going on a straight path down the string. So in essence, we have to create a contrary motion to basically cancel out that arc. So as we go ahead and do some of the cancellation maneuvers, the fingers in the bow hand will have to reciprocate. We need to have some movement in and out, as well as an up and down type of flexing motion here. So I'm going to grab my violin and I'll show you an example of how the bow hand is shaped in the various parts. All right, now that I have the violin in hand, let's go ahead and draw a full bow. And I want you to pay attention to the shapes of the fingers here as they progress through the stroke. Now at this point, I'll go ahead and bring the bow up here, and you can see the shape of the fingers here have opened up. They've extended out, and that's to supply some control over that angle of the bow. If I were to have left my fingers in the original shape when I had first formed the bow grip, then the bow would no longer be in a good position on the string here. You can see it's pushing out this way. So we undo or counteract that natural progression by changing the shape this way, which would bring the bow in to a straighter position here. So rather than out there, it's in here, and that's all really in the fingers there. So now let's draw an up bow, and I'll show you the positioning of the fingers then and the hand at the frog. Now at this point you can see the same side of the hand is in a different position. It's more curved and more drawn into the palm, and the index finger has to open up a little bit to allow that drawing in of this end of the bow. And that will result in pushing the tip outwards this way, again counteracting the natural desire of the bow to go in this direction. So we're manipulating the angle out a bit. So on the frog portion of the bow, the fingers draw in, putting the tip out. Middle, you don't need to really worry. And then at the tip of the bow where you're extended, we have to push the bow forwards a little bit and get more straightening that way, because the bow wants to go in this path more. Or, even if your path is here, the hand will want to make the bow be out in this region more because of the fingers being in this position. So again, we're going to extend the little finger, and that will draw the tip of the bow in towards the face more, and it gives you that greater control. So here's the middle of the bow. The frog is more contracted, middle, tip more extended. Now we'll put the violin down and show you a little bit of some kind of exercises you can utilize to just get used to that feeling. All right, so let's make sure we have a good bow grip initially. Middle fingertip on silver, wrapping the 3 fingers over, coil them, little finger on top, leaning in towards the side of the index, curving the thumb, placing it right in its tip, side of the hair in contact. Again, please refer to my earlier video that breaks down the details for you. So now at this point we have our bow grip. Make sure everything is loose and the bow is free to wobble around inside. The holding mechanism is really the center finger and the thumb. So make sure that those stay nice and loose for you. And now let's take our other hand and hold our forearm stationary. So what we're going to do is try to make the bow stay vertical as if it's traveling through a tube, and raise the hand up and drop the hand down. So at this point, I'm at my lowest position. It's where my hand feels naturally droopy here. So raise the hand up and then back down. Just try to control that motion there as you do it in a loose and relaxed manner. And if you don't feel comfortable doing with the bow, we could just substitute a pencil or even do it without initially. So let's try doing this without the bow in hand. Okay, so let's grab the forearm and just take the hand, let it flop down naturally, and you can see how the fingers just naturally extend, which is what it's like when you're playing near the tip of the bow and you have that extension feeling. And when you draw your hand up, they naturally draw into the hand, and that's what it is similar to when you're at the frog of the bow, the lower part of the bow. So this is almost as if you played a down bow, you're extended, and then when you draw the up bow, fingers are drawn in more, and it feels correct and natural. So we just want to go with what's naturally built into our system here. So hold your forearm, flop the hand, find the bottoming out position, and at this point, go ahead and just straight up, straight down, in a loose, comfortable, and gentle fashion. And then the next step would be to throw the pencil in there and hold it in the bow grip, and then try to keep that pencil vertical, up the elevator shaft, and back down, always trying to keep the vertical pencil. So let's try that now. All right, I grabbed a little pen here, and I'm going to form my bow hold on it as I would on the bow. And now, let's go ahead and do the same process. Grab the forearm, let the hand bottom out, check for the straightness and verticality of your pen or pencil, and let's just keep that in the position. We just draw up and down. You notice the little finger is staying on the bow. We want to keep our contact, and we want to try and keep the ability to bend those knuckles in the process here. If you have your bow hand where you allow those knuckles to collapse and lock, then you're not going to have the capability to do what we're trying to achieve here. So we're looking for this kind of motion, loose, gentle, and that bow is just riding nice and vertically and trying to stay as straight as we can through the stroke. And then we can replicate that more easily on the actual violin with the bow. Now again, revisiting the bow and the fingers and how they're functioning in the actual bow stroke, I'd like you to just take a moment to check these kind of movements out in your bow hand. Make sure you have the ability to flex this without any hand motion, any wrist activity. Let it just be in the fingers, in and out, up and down like these little pinky push-ups. And you want to make sure that in addition to these kind of movements, that you can combine them with these type of movements. So ideally, you need to have a combination of the two different types of actions going on through the bow stroke and to varying levels of activity depending on the type of technical bow stroke you're trying to do. Some of them require quite a bit more flexibility and movement in the fingers, and others might be more arm related or wrist related or a blend of the different combinations. But for now, we're trying to achieve a greater range of motion and freedom and get you to learn how to coordinate these movements in a loose manner. So let's go ahead and grab the violin. I'll play some open strings for you. You can just analyze how the stroke looks on the bow hand as I go through the various strings. We'll begin on the lowest string, our G string. D, A, dropping my arm height a bit. And E. We're looking for this kind of mobility in the fingers, changing of shapes through the strokes. And it's very evident when we do a little string crossing type exercise, something like this. You can see all of the combinations of those movements blended together, and it results in like a circular shape in the fingers and hand. Depending on which part of the bow you're in will determine how much movement is actually going on. At the frog, it would be a lot more with the finger action. And then if we were in the upper part, it'd be a little bit of a broader stroke, more of a squashed oval, and using much more forearm activity. Alright, so hopefully this is helpful to you, and you'll find that once you are able to start utilizing these movements, it will greatly improve your fine muscle control, and you'll be able to manipulate the sound in the ways you need. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to subscribe to my channel. This is the beginning of a series of videos I'm going to be creating covering every aspect I can come up with, and all of them free for you to use to help you guys learn how to improve your violin playing at home on your own and have some guidance. Thank you. Bye.